I'm Sony Artisan of Imagery Tony Gale, outside in the wilds of Connecticut, and today I'm going to be going over Sony's Pixel Shift feature. Sony introduced that feature with the Alpha 7R3. With the Alpha 7R3, it would take 4 shots, you would combine them in post. Starting with the Alpha 7R4, you had a choice between 4-shot pixel shift and 16-shot pixel shift. I almost always do 16-shot pixel shift. The 4-shot pixel shift debayers the image so you get more accurate color. The 16-shot pixel shift both debayers the image, you get the more accurate color, plus you get 4 times the resolution. So with a 61 megapixel camera like the Alpha 7R4, the Alpha 7R5, instead of 60 megapixels, you get 240 megapixels. So you get a huge file. The cameras that have it are, of course, the Alpha 7R3, the one that Sony introduced it on, the Alpha 7R4, the Alpha 7R5, the Alpha 1, the Alpha 1 II, and the Alpha 7CR. With Pixel Shift, you're going to want a sturdy tripod. I'm using a Gitzo Traveler today. And of course, image stabilization doesn't work because you're using that system to create the Pixel Shift by moving the sensor. For a traditionally successful Pixel Shift image, you're going to want to photograph something that's not moving. There is a feature with the newer cameras and the Sony Imaging Edge software to help compensate for some movement, but you're still going to have better results if whatever you're photographing doesn't move. I'm going to be using the Alpha 1 II today. So that's the menu you're going to see. Whichever camera you're using, the menu will be slightly different. You'll be fine. I prefer manual focus in these situations just so nothing changes. I typically put the camera on timer, so when I start the Pixel Shift, there's no movement. I'm using my Atomos Ninja 5 here to record the screen so you can see what I'm doing. With the Alpha 1 II, you go to Composite Raw Shooting, Pixel Shift Multi-Shoot. I'm doing 16-shot with shortest between frames. You can do 1 second, 2 seconds, 3, 4, 5, all the way up to 30 seconds. But I generally find shortest is the best answer unless you're trying to do something quirky, which sometimes I do. One of the great things about Pixel Shift is even if something goes wrong with the final image, you have 16 frames, so you can still use all 16 frames individually if you need. I'm using the Alpha 1 II with the Sony 14mm GM 1.8. I'm capturing at both f8 and f11 just to see what works better. If you stop down too much, you risk running into diffraction. Now that I've done the Pixel Shift images, I'm going to use Sony's free Imaging Edge software to put them together. First, open the viewer and navigate to the folder where I downloaded the images. So now I'm selecting all the images I want to include. The software knows which goes with which, so I can select all of them and it will create the individual Pixel Shift images from all the different times I did the process. Right-click the selected images, select Create Pixel Shift Multi-Shoot Composite, create one image. There might be a pop-up saying basically it can't make a Pixel Shift if it's not a Pixel Shift. Now, select where to save the file format, and if I'm using a newer camera, I can select if I want to compensate for movement. For today, I'm using the ARQ format, which is a RAW format, so I have as much flexibility as possible. Photoshop and Lightroom can open the ARQ file just fine. Here, the software is doing its thing. How fast it goes just depends on the speed of the computer and the number of images. Now that it's processed, I have Adobe Bridge open. It may take a while to build the thumbnails because they're really big files. Now opening into Adobe Camera Raw, here they are. I can adjust whatever I need. Shadows, highlights, white balance, exposure, all the normal stuff. And here are the process TIFFs in Photoshop. At 100%, I can really see how much the depth of field matters. The detail and color accuracy is great. It's a huge file. It's really a fantastic format. I have one where I used movement correction because of the shadows changing and one without. Here's the difference between the two. Hopefully that was helpful. I hope you try out Pixel Shift yourself. I think it is a really overlooked and cool feature that can be really great.